if they're having those symptoms, they need to really change their diet. They really need to get more proteins and healthy fats, especially because the female hormones are made up of cholesterol. And if people don't understand the cholesterol research now, I mean, you've lived in a cave. It's it's actually good for females to have cholesterol from single ingredient animal based proteins, like steak and chicken and lamb and bison and burgers. So yeah, it's important to get those healthy fats.
Welcome to the Athletic Edge podcast. I'm your host, Liam Evans, strength and conditioning coach and owner of Evans Performance. This is a podcast tailored for athletes, coaches, and parents interested in every facet of athletic development. Join me and guests from around the world as we dive into game-changing tools and expert insights covering strength training, performance enhancement, and long-term athletic development strategies. Uncover the keys to elevate your athletic potential, drawing from trusted resources to safely and effectively navigate your training and build your athletic edge. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are joined by Erica Suter, who's a strength coach down in Tampa, Florida. She's also an author of, I believe, 2 books now, so The Strong Female Athlete and Female Athlete High Performance. But yeah, welcome to the show, Erica.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, excited for you to be here. Before we dive into too much, do you just want to give a quick kind of background on yourself, your experiences, your playing career, all those sorts of things, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. I have been in soccer for about over 20 years as a player. I started very young at age 6 and just developed a passion for it. And I played other sports at the time and had a good childhood full of play and just really trying to figure out what I wanted. But in the end, I chose soccer. And as I became a teenager, I started to get serious about playing in college and getting to the next level. And I decided to move to a higher team during my teenage years and ended up committing to Johns Hopkins University, where I played college soccer for 4 years and also was a captain my senior year. And then when I graduated, I went to Brazil to coach as well as play semi professionally. And then when I got back from Brazil, I decided to go into exercise science for my master's degree and just really saw a need for performance training, especially for youth girls soccer players and all of the overuse injuries and ACL injuries that have just only been increasing over the years. So I really wanted to help and make a difference. And I also just wanted to share my love for strength training and just how much it helped me in soccer, but just also my life after soccer and overall health, which I think is sometimes more important when we're training our athletes. So, yeah, now I've been performance coaching for almost 13 years and I mainly work with girls soccer players who are anywhere from age 9 to 18 years old and some college athletes.
Perfect. Yeah. And I guess just to kind of give some context for maybe that people that won't know exactly how the system kind of works if they're not in the States, and especially with your population of female young athletes, young soccer players. Do you want to give kind of a brief overview on what that looks like as far as the club side of things? I know there's travel and high school and kind of just how that kind of looks.
Yes, it's actually very different now than when I was growing up. So I can just give a snapshot of when I was
Yeah.
growing up. It was mainly rec soccer, and that's what a lot of the younger ages were doing. And a lot of kids during that time didn't really switch to travel teams until like age 12 or 13 when they were a little bit older. And there was really like one good league for girls back then called WAGs, where I was growing up. And there were also like national pool opportunities through the Olympic Development Program. So there were good opportunities, but I would say nowadays there's more travel clubs than ever
Hmm.
before. There's so many different leagues. There's the Girls Academy, there's ECNL, there's ECNLR, and the NPL. Like, there's just so many, but it is really nice because a lot of girls can really pick the level that they want and the competition that they want. And there's just a lot of options. And I think that's a good thing in a way for girls now to have more opportunity. So that's kind of the difference, and I would also say a lot of the travel and more elite clubs are marketed towards the younger age groups, like the under 12s,
Hmm.
and I see more kids kinda getting into that travel system quicker than we did, whether it's for better or for worse, it really depends on the kid and if they're ready for it, but yeah, that's really how it's changed, and there's definitely pros and cons, but the good news is that the girls game here at the youth level has really grown, and that's a good thing.
What would be some of the cons to this kind of system where I assume they're between all the leagues and all the games that they're playing, they're essentially playing most of the year or year round, I would assume. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what are some of the maybe issues that could come about from that?
The leagues here run from, like, September through basically May, and then May, you have tryout season for the
Yeah.
next season in September, so it's basically over 8 months out of the year that a lot of these kids are single sport specialized athletes, and just looking at the definition of specialization, it is doing a single sport for more than 8 months out of the year and excluding other sports that you can be a part of and be a team on. So a lot of these girls are not really able to have that wiggle room to try that basketball team or try that volleyball team because
Yeah.
their soccer team might practice 3 nights a week and the girl might have to miss soccer practice and then get penalized for it. And it's just a really hard hole for these girls and these parents to crawl out of. But I mean, the literature is very clear on the cons of specializing too early and not having time to explore movement and different activities and different sports as a kid and just develop a broad range of athletic skills and work different muscle groups than you're working in soccer and put yourself in environments where you have to problem solve and use your brain differently and be creative and work with new teammates or have a different coach and a leader. It's really important for the kids' mental development. And I think the physical development's very clear,
Mhm.
but the mental side of it, I'm more excited about because we see a lot of teenage girls suffering mental health issues, and there is something to it that they're potentially having a childhood that's reducing that play and that ability to express themselves and be creative and think for themselves and develop resiliency. So it runs really deep, the
Mhm. Yeah.
issues, and I don't think a lot of people are really thinking through that mental side of getting kids specialized too young and getting them too serious about soccer too young. Competition is great for young ones, but you can get that in a rec environment. You can get that by trying other sports. It doesn't have to be your 8-year-old on the top team in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the one thing parents are lied to about is that their young kid is not going to be ready for that next level if they don't start serious at that young age.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure you have this because I get it a lot as well, but when their, sports schedule does start to ramp up or they end up having an extra session added in or maybe a skills session or anything like that, one, do you have parents coming to you to be like, "Oh, we may have to take a step back from the strength training for now because so and so has this and that added to their schedule this month or this next few months." How do you kind of approach that conversation with parents? Because obviously, it's a fine line. You want to support everything that they're doing, but at the same time, we want to do what's best for the kid, and sometimes they don't always know if physically what that could be.
Well, for my young ones, my under 12s, I don't I don't want to micromanage and really sell people on this. I just try to educate the best I can, and
Yeah.
I tell parents of young ones, "Hey, the summer is probably the only time where you have time to step away from soccer, reduce the soccer load, and lean towards something else that helps develop their athleticism and their speed and their body weight strength and their upper strength as well." And once season starts with the young ones, I just don't push it too much.
Mhm.
And I educate the best I can. I'm not trying to sell people on what I'm doing. I have it come from just a genuine place, and I do that with my older girls as well, because my older girls are really the ones where the injuries start to manifest in those teenage years. And that's when the strength training and the loading in the gym becomes way more important, because they're starting to play more games. They're also doing school soccer the same time as travel soccer. And then on top of that, they have academic stress, they have dating life stress.
Yeah.
And I really believe that giving these girls a new environment that is strength training not only makes them physically strong to handle all of the soccer demands, but it makes them mentally strong too. And it gives them that break from maybe some of the stress in school, and to let it out in the
Yeah.
gym, or
Yeah.
to come in the gym and kind of vent to everyone else and just let it out. I mean, there's just so many benefits. And yeah, the older girls, like, they all should be strength training year round, but I don't push it on people. I try
Mhm.
to make my year round program very accessible. I tell people, hey, if you can come at least one time a week and then do that second workout at home, that's amazing. Like, that's what you'll do, and it'll be enough to at least maintain and get some good recovery in, and make sure that we're keeping the soreness to a minimum, and we're not losing everything we just worked for in the summer.
Do some of your girls get a little bit worried about maybe that aren't as experienced training that, oh, I don't want to train, in season because I don't want to be sore, I don't want to be tired, I don't want to be this, and that. What do you kind of explain to them when it comes to that?
I tell them that anything that is high volume is the enemy. So we do not do high volume in season. We're not doing 3 sets of 15 reps on any exercise ever. And I just explain to them, look, like, the in season program is written in a way that you can do a lift before practice and not feel sore and feel energized and warmed up for that
Hmm.
practice. And I educate the parents on that too, that the in-season lifts are planned very meticulously around the schedule. And I don't do a lift the day before a game. I rarely do one after a game unless it's upper
Hmm.
body. But yeah, it just really comes back to that education piece. And I tell girls that you're more likely to be sore from the small sided games and the change of direction that you're doing in practice, because that is more taxing on the muscles and joints, because you're getting that eccentric loading, and that's a
Hmm.
lot. That's a lot on the muscles. So yeah, just really try and educate. And honestly, the girls who have continued with me year round hardly get injured.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
so consistent. They're so consistent year round, 1 to 2 times a week, and it's really powerful. And even if it's only a few girls that do that, I'm really excited, because they're the ones who are reaping the benefits.
Hmm. Yeah, one of the big things I guess kind of going around right now is injuries and specifically the ACLs with female athletes. As far as this topic goes, obviously there's different theories and everything out there, but from what you understand about the situation, kind of why is this becoming so, or is it so prevalent with female athletes, and what can we do to combat this?
Yeah, it is a big issue. And yeah, it's definitely multifactorial, and there's a lot of things that go into it. Sometimes it boils down to something as simple as bad luck, could be playing surface, could be lack of sleep the night before, or chronic lack of sleep and just being fatigued and not focused. It could be a muscle weakness issue. So maybe your daughter just trained only in the off season and then didn't maintain for the rest of the year, and her muscles atrophied and got weaker. So that's an issue. Not doing enough true speed training and getting those higher velocity stimuli within training, which is when most of these injuries tend to occur. Not doing progressed plyometrics and smart plyometrics. Oftentimes, I see coaches do plyometrics with female athletes that are so high volume, it looks like a hit circuit. The
Yeah.
landing looks terrible. It's sloppy. It's not crisp. They're not focused on their stability of the trunk or knee. So just making sure that girls are doing progressed plyometrics from double to single leg and then in different directions and then adding load. So, trying to think, lack of nutrition,
Yeah.
which is one of the most common ones in young girls. Most young girls are very deficient in a lot of nutrients, which ruins their ability for their muscles to recover well. It ruins their ability to think quickly in a game and react quickly, which can lead to injury. It can ruin their sleep cycle. So there's just so many things nutritionally going on. Just to name a few, a lot of girls are very deficient in protein, iron, B vitamins, choline, creatine. So it's a mess. And I think people, instead of being like, well, oh, females get injured more, we should address all the things I just talked about and do them the best we can year round. We don't have to be perfect, but we can do the best we can year round with the basics of training, nutrition, and recovery and just managing load.
Yeah. So essentially, having a holistic kind of approach to everything instead of right now. I feel like a lot of people, or especially parents, will hear information and then they zone in on, all right, I want to prevent ACLs. What exercise
Mhm.
specifically, or what can I do specifically to do that? And I think what you just said is basically a comprehensive program, and as well as the nutrition and the recovery and sleep and everything plays a part in this. And you did mention it already. I was going to ask you about kind of what are the biggest problems and issues you see with nutrition in one in youth athletes, but more specifically in youth female athletes. And you mentioned them, but is there something that you also give as like a take home message to maybe even parents, or how they can approach these to get their protein the different ways, or if you have a vegan or a vegetarian athlete, how you can approach that? So is there anything that you do specifically to kind of help these girls, or is it just talking to them?
I have a whole curriculum for my girls, at least in the summer off season, and then with my remote program, we discuss a lot of these concepts year round. So, with nutrition, we just start with the basics. Okay, well, what are the macros, protein, fat, and carbs? What do they do for your body? What do they do for sport performance? And what foods can you get at the grocery store that cover these macros, that are
Hmm.
healthy options that you can digest well, where you get a lot of nutrients and vitamins and minerals. So we start there, and then we talk about things like making sure you're getting enough calories. That is one of the most common issues, is girls are malnourished because they aren't getting in enough energy for the day. And I think that just kind of comes back to just societal body image expectations, and just girls thinking they need to be like super skinny and like starve themselves.
Yeah.
And we really address that. And a lot of girls who are under fueling really suffer from just a lack of energy and poor sleep patterns, hormonal imbalances, missed periods, skin issues are a big one. Bone issues, stress fractures, musculoskeletal injuries, overuse injuries that shouldn't be happening to young girls.
Yeah.
So yeah, we talk about all this stuff, and I'm a very protein forward performance coach. I think if girls can put protein first, the rest just falls into place really nicely, because it is very satiating, especially if they're getting protein from animal based sources. I don't work with vegan or vegetarian athletes because I think there's too many deficiencies that we have to supplement with, and not all supplements you absorb anyway. So I just hope that those athletes eventually see the light, that a meat based life is the best for female hormones and mental health. In meat, you're getting all the B vitamins, you're getting choline, magnesium, selenium. creatine. You don't have to supplement with creatine. You're getting healthy omega-3 fatty acids, which are only found in meats. I'm sorry, they're not found in nuts. You need DHEA and EPA fatty acids for mental health, for joint health. I mean, we could go on, but
On, yeah.
I would say meat is the OG superfood, and I encourage girls to eat more of it because they're going to have more energy. They're going to have more balanced hormones and better health and more power output and explosiveness from the creatine and protein. Their recovery is going to be a lot faster because their muscles are getting the nutrients they need. So I start with that first, and I always recommend two RDs who are meat forward and who can customize the program to the athlete. Michelle Hearn is amazing, and then Cynthia Monteleone. As a performance coach, I can only give general nutrition advice. I don't write meal plans. If someone needs a meal plan, I refer out to the RDs that I trust who really get their girls results. And the girls that end up going to Cynthia and Michelle are girls who have done traditional nutrition plans, who thought they were eating well, but they developed hormonal issues, autoimmune issues, and they're wondering why. And Michelle and Cynthia have to fix these girls all the time.
Hmm.
So there's a
Yeah.
lot of issues in
Yeah.
female nutrition that I could go on another
Yeah.
podcast to talk about.
How does that also play into kind of just the overall growth and maturation of female athletes? And as those things are happening, what are some things that we can kind of be looking out for?
Oh yeah, so much is going on during puberty and the growth spurt, and that's when girls are starting to develop their thyroid and their hormonal levels and
Hmm.
their bone density and their muscles and the integrity of their joints. So I mean, during that time is the most important time to make sure they are nourished and not underfueled, and they're getting vitamin D and calcium and protein for their bones. They're getting amazing like salmon and shrimp for their thyroid health. They're getting fatty acids for their brain development. Their brain still is growing up until age 25. So yeah, teenage girls need proper nourishment the most. These are the most critical years. And then on the strength side of things, a lot of girls during this time, they actually have a regression in performance. It's totally normal, but we can help them along in that process by teaching them strength training and making sure that they're building muscle mass. So a lot of girls tend to put on more fat mass during the growth spurt, and it can be a very disorienting time and can be very frustrating. But if girls are strength training, you can kind of offset that a little bit and help
Hmm.
them to feel more confident and in control of their body and how they're moving, and just giving them proper speed training and making sure you're working on coordination and stability and balance. And it can be such an awkward phase, and I think a lot of parents especially get frustrated when like their 12 or 13-year-old girl regresses during this time, but I can tell you it is normal, and it's kind of a storm we all have to weather and just have some grace with her, but we can still provide her with good training and nourishment to really help turn it around.
Do you find during this time that they're more maybe susceptible to certain things, maybe certain injuries or anything like that? Or is it just completely across the board? We want to, keep them strength training, keep them speed training, keep them hopefully as healthy as possible.
Oh yeah, like this age group especially should be doing some form of strength training under the instruction of a professional who understands growth and maturation and how to start with the body weight movement patterns and how to progress load and do that in a smart way. I get really worried when I see 12-year-old girls on Instagram doing 30-inch box jumps before they're ready for it, and they don't have the control or the balance or just the basic movement pattern of a hip hinge to do that box jump in a way that they're actually getting benefit from it. It's actually like
Yeah.
making them worse. So yeah, I just get really worried about that. And This age group is probably one of my favorites to work with, but it is one of the hardest with parents and educating because they do want to rush that process sometimes, or they kind of brush off when an overuse injury is happening and they think it's just a part of them growing up and going through the growth spurt. But it really shouldn't be happening. It is common in girls to get Osgood-Schlatter and
Yeah.
some pain in the kneecap due to the growth of the bones in relation to the tendons and the muscles. The bones are growing really fast, and that can put a lot of strain on that kneecap. But I think parents of this age group should take those injuries seriously, and it might be time to lean away from the soccer specific training if this injury is chronic over 3 months where a girl has knee pain. If it's over 3 months, then that's a red flag where you need to lean away from soccer training to more strength training and some rehab.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hard because they have essentially it's a hard pill to swallow because they have to maybe take a step back in order to take a step forward later down the line. But for people that may want to make sure that they're doing some of the correct things and not everything that's just posted on Instagram with this age group, what are you mentioned, hip hinging, and I'm sure there's other movement patterns, but what are just some general things that you do with them that maybe people can kind of check off their list?
So for this age group, I do a combination of more of the structure, teaching the movement patterns. So just basic how to hip hinge and squat and lunge, do a pull up, hang from a bar, bear crawl. And then eventually we progress those movements, whether if that's with weights or bands. And then I also complement that with more like play type movements where they're exploring things still, and their bodies are still really supple, and their brains are really plastic still during this age, usually 12 to 14 in girls. And I do a lot of like gymnastics based ground movements that really challenge their flexibility and their core strength and their single leg strength, and just doing it in all different planes where they're flipping over or moving side to side. One that I really love is where they roll back and try and stand up as fast as they can with no hands. Just great for core strength and hip flexibility. And yeah, just giving this group a combination of that play. So they're still exploring and getting in these tough positions, but then
Hmm.
also teaching them the basic movement patterns. So when they get those down in when they're 13 or 14 or 15, then we can start to load and we can start to really gain some strength and then move on to more of the power based training where we're starting to move weight fast, whether that's with dumbbells, kettlebell swings, or medicine ball slams or tosses.
Hmm. And then, are you doing well? Two questions. One, are you doing any speed training with any of your athletes, and maybe not just the younger population, but just across the board? And another question: can we actually improve speed? Because I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't quite understand.
All my age groups do speed. It just looks a little bit different for everyone. So, my 12 and unders, we do a lot of races, reactive drills, chasing, just really fun games where we are sprinting as fast as we can and getting a good physical adaptation and really challenging the nervous system. And it's also fun at the same time. So, getting them
Hmm.
to really think. And with this age group, emotionally and mentally, it doesn't really land well to do track drills with them and kind
Yeah.
of tell them, hey, you should strike your foot here and
Yeah.
then do this. It doesn't really land well because they need to be stimulated constantly. They need to be engaged. The coach needs to be really animated and excited. That's not to say I don't do some instruction with the younger ages. I'll do a little bit, but it's only maybe one cue for that session. Maybe just working on their sprint posture. Hey guys, race to me as fast as you can, but keep your eyes on my hand. Instead of telling them, okay, stand upright and then you need to do this with your eyes and your chin needs. I'm not doing that with my young ones, but I am doing kind of how they more guided discovery where I give a task and it gets them into that position for optimal speed. And then my older girls, usually ages 12 and a half, 13 and up, it's more structured, going over the sprint mechanics within our warm up. And then we're looking at more objective data, and we're timing all of their sprints and making sure that they're improving over a long period of time, which kind of comes to your next question. Anyone can improve speed, but it is, I think it was Joel Smith. He's one of my favorite speed coaches. He said speed is about 70% genetic,
Yeah.
but 30% trainable. So that 30% we really want to take advantage of. And you take advantage of that by training speed consistently year round. My girls who continue in season do speed one time a week, and we basically just brush up our mechanics. And we might run just 2 sprints all out, but they're getting enough of a stimulus to still improve that year round and not wither away. Because usually when you stop a speed and power program, those are the first two things to go and decrease. So yeah, anyone can improve speed, but I will say this, I'm very hesitant for my girls to always compare to other girls, especially their sprint times. It's good to compete when we're racing, but there are some girls who they'll never be an 18-mile-per-hour girl. They might just be a 15 mile per hour, and that's the highest speed they'll ever reach, even though they've trained a lot. But maybe they started at a 14 mile per hour and improved to a 15. That's amazing for that girl. And then maybe the other girl started at a 16.5 mile per hour, and then with some training, she was able to reach her ceiling of 18 miles per hour. That's a great thing too, but I don't want those 2 girls to compare, because that 18-mile-per-hour girl did get good genetics. So, parents need to keep that in mind when comparing their kid to other athletes and their sprint times.
Yeah, you're not gonna make a kid that's not as fast become Usain Bolt, but you can definitely make them faster. I think that, and that's an important thing. If anybody can get faster, that's a good thing to know, because I've had a lot of parents that just think, it's all 100% genetics, and you're either born with it or you're not. And also, on the flip side of that, there's also the injury, prevention side of sprinting, and especially with hamstrings. And I'm sure um, you've had experience with your athletes, and as long as you're keeping them with that stimulus that they may not actually get when they train or even play a game, we can, decrease the likelihood of these injuries happening. Um, but you had an interesting saying that I saw, that was, you can't get strong unless you get uncomfortable. I just wanted to kind of dive into that and see what you mean by that.
Yeah, this is my favorite one. Well, if you lift a 10-pound dumbbell for a goblet squat for 5 years straight, you're just gonna coast. You're gonna be the same the whole time and just kinda stagnate, and you're not really pushing yourself. And I always tell girls, like, if you wanna get stronger in the weight room, eventually you have to progress to a weight where those last couple of reps might be a grind.
Hmm.
As long as you have good form and you're grinding it out, you're getting stronger. And we usually progress. I mean, it depends on the lift, but we usually up weight every like 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks maybe, depending on where girls are. But yeah, you can't build muscle unless you load more. And I think that's one thing that female soccer has really gotten wrong over the years is we thought that all these injury prevention programs were like doing mini bands all the time and kind of like balance drills with no load, but eventually those muscles need a new stimulus to get stronger.
Yeah. And another thing you also mentioned was the plyometric side of training. Do you want to just quickly dive into what exactly a plyometric is, and what are some of the things that you do with your athletes?
Yeah, so a plyometric is anything that's like a jump or a hop or like bounding. So anything that you're where you're producing force and you're going fast. So the time between those ground contacts when you're hopping, jumping, or bounding should be quick. But usually when I'm starting girls with plyometrics, we start with just the deceleration phase where we're landing a crisp landing, and they can control that first, and then we progress more into a power phase where we might just start with one broad jump where they're landing that, and then we might progress to three broad jumps in a row where they're going as fast as possible and as far as possible. So that's just one way to progress. And then, like my older girls, like my 16 and ups, we're adding load to their plyometrics because the
Mhm.
body weight has kind of gotten easy at that point and they're moving really fast with body weight. So, my older girls this summer, for example, instead of just doing regular bounding side to side, I'm going to have them hold a medicine ball and produce force with that added load to just challenge that plyometric more. Or we might do like a deep squat into a high vertical jump holding that medicine ball. So, yeah, I mean, there's just a way to start with plyometrics and progress, which is why I don't think we should be having, 12-year-old girls with no training age at all doing all these advanced plyos. She has her whole life to train. We don't need to we don't need to rush it. She has her whole life to get in the gym and do these cool exercises on boxes and with dumbbells and with chains. We will get there. But just like school, we have to start basic. We have to start with first grade, and then eventually we'll get to ninth grade. Eventually we will get to college. It's with exercise, it needs to be done the same way as the education system, and it has to really be done in steps based on the age and maturity of the kid.
Yeah, I love with my kids the kind of the toothpaste analogy where, if you have a brand new fresh bottle of toothpaste, you can barely squeeze it, something will come out. You'll get an adaptation for something. It's not until we get really deep into your career and training age that we have to roll it up and get to more of the fancy stuff. Um,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on conditioning with your youth athletes? And this is more so maybe they come to you and they think that they're lacking fitness and they want to do extra conditioning possibly during season or with you separately or anything like that.
This is always a complicated one, and it's a case by case basis, but I would say for the most part, most of my girls have a good base of conditioning, because their coaches do a really good job in practice conditioning within small-sided games with the work to rest times and just making them really intense. And I'm a huge fan of small-sided games for conditioning because it adds the soccer component, the thinking component, team tactics. I think the first thing to go when an athlete is out of shape is their mind breaks down and their decisions break down. So small-sided games are key, and I encourage people to be on a team where the coach knows how to program good conditioning within those. But,
Hmm.
in the summer when my girls aren't going to practices and games, we do, formal conditioning. So, we'll start very broad with, full field tempo runs. So, we'll sprint down at, like, a moderate pace and then jog back within 60 seconds, do several sets of those, and we'll do that for about 3 to 4 weeks, just really up the volume and how many reps we do. And then in the next month, we'll start to progress to more change of direction and then progress to reducing those rest times on those drills. I really like to do conditioning drills where, especially closer to preseason, where girls are doing a shuttle run for as fast as they can for like 10 to 12 seconds and then resting for about 30 seconds and just really translating it more to how the game is played. I think girls need more of that high intensity conditioning where we're getting into that red zone for their heart rate over 90% of max heart rate. I'm not a huge fan of like the slow distance,
Yeah.
like longer form
Yeah.
cardio. I think girls really need more intense, and they also need more of that speed training.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. And also, since we're talking about females, obviously the menstrual cycle will come into play at some point. There's also a bunch of information about training through this that's out there. Go their stronger times are going to be at this period. They need to back off a little at this period. What is your approach to training through that period, and how do you kind of view that?
Well, it's tough because with the schedule now, can we back off during certain weeks? There could be a game that week, and you have a roster of 18 to 20 girls. Good luck getting them all on the same page with their
Yep.
cycles. So, that really leaves the girls with taking responsibility for their own health, and a lot of the negative symptoms that can come with that week before their period or right when their period starts, like fatigue or disrupted sleep or maybe like lack of focus or cramps or stomach issues or muscle soreness, we can actually mitigate, if not get rid of those symptoms altogether. And that really comes with making sure they're getting the proper nutrients, which is, again, why I'm a huge fan of a meat forward nutrition lifestyle. I think veganism and vegetarianism is not great for female hormones. And girls need to be really honest with themselves. Are they having painful periods? Is their skin, does it have a lot of acne? Are they having heavy periods? Are they not sleeping well? And if they're having those symptoms, they need to really change their diet. They really need to get more proteins and healthy fats, especially because the female hormones are made up of cholesterol. And if people don't understand the cholesterol research now, I mean, you've lived in a cave. It's actually good
Yep.
for females to have cholesterol from single ingredient animal based proteins, like steak and chicken and lamb and bison and burgers. So yeah, it's important to get those healthy fats for the balance and development of those hormones so that girls aren't experiencing a lot of those symptoms. And I've put a lot of these symptoms into remission myself. I mean, for all those years, like I thought that being a girl was hard and I just had to deal with cramps and pains, and it was just part of it. And then I started to go down the rabbit hole and change what I was doing, and my life changed. And now I don't really see like the menstrual cycle as a negative thing. It's just like, oh, like here, it's just a week, it's happening, and like I feel the same. Like I actually feel great. So it is possible, but yeah, girls really have to change their nutrition lifestyle for sure.
Do you think there's a lot of almost like fear mongering behind some of the things that go along with it, even just the ACLs and other injuries and things that might affect them?
Oh yeah, there definitely is, and there actually was a very interesting study done a few years ago on female athletes' perception of their
Hmm.
menstrual cycle, and overall, girls had a very negative perception about it, and that to me is that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it kind of leaves you stuck in this mindset. Oh well, this is just how it is. Like it's just going to be a
Yeah.
negative time, and it sucks. And that study really opened my eyes. Wow, like a lot of these girls are being told that this is just a part of like life, but I really think a lot of girls can turn it around, and there is a lot of fear mongering with the injury thing because if there were a week where all girls were tearing their ACL during their cycle, then they're going to be so terrified during that week. So
Yeah.
I would rather have them front end it all and nourish their bodies the best they can so that week isn't that bad and they can still play games. They don't need to sit out or they don't need to go on the field hesitant and scared. So I think we are actually disempowering female athletes by talking about the ACL and menstrual cycle. I know people are well intentioned and trying to like do all the research, but we have to really think about like, are we actually making it worse mentally for them by fear mongering that, oh, well, you're female, you're at higher risk of injury. It's
Yeah.
like the wide hips thing from years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, you all have wider hips, and that freaked every girl out. Oh my gosh, I'm a girl, so much wrong with me. And it's just
Yeah.
like, no, like there's a lot you can do to
Yeah.
be strong. So it's yeah, I think it's definitely fear mongering for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, with the hips, you always hear the Q angle causes this and yeah,
Right.
all these things. Um,
There's
I,
some boys with wide hips, you know, like
I I know you have some meetings to get to, so I'll wrap up with these last two questions. So one, obviously, you're for people that don't know, she's very successful or was a very successful athlete herself. I know you had, just from knowing you and kind of listening to other things, you had offers when you were playing to go the D1 route, and you ended up choosing against that. So when it comes to picking kind of the right program for you, what went through your mind, and why do you think it was such a good decision for you?
I really wanted to go to a small school, actually. The big D1, like ACC Big 10 was just not appealing to me. I wanted to go to a small school. I wanted to go to a local school so my parents could come to all the games. And I wanted to go to a school with great academics, a school where I could make a difference in the soccer program. I did want to get playing time because it was another 4 years, and that
Hmm.
was just me. So you have to really think about your non-negotiables and kind of also like what compromises you're willing to make. Did I like the Baltimore cold winters and humid summers? No, not really. But it's like the little stuff like that where it's like, okay, I can compromise on that. Like, no college program is going to be perfect. So, really consider what your big rocks are. And for me, yeah, it was size of the school, academics, playing time, and being close to home.
Did the coach have any impact on you as far as making your decision?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Coach Leo did such a great job of growing the program, and I just love the team culture he had built. And like for a team of over 30 women, for the most part, everyone got along really great, and we did a lot of really fun activities together, had some really great Hopkins traditions that they're still carrying on today from him. So yeah, that was really important to me. And all the girls on the team were like really good students, and I wanted to be surrounded by girls who were also going to push me academically.
Yeah, perfect. And the last thing, what advice would you give to young female athletes?
Start taking care of yourself now. I did do strength training back in middle school, and it changed my life. And I truly believe that getting into that habit young has led to me still wanting to incorporate it in my life today and prioritize it. And as you know, Liam, like us coaches actually don't have a lot of time to work out. We're
Yeah.
constantly yeah, we're constantly coaching athletes. I never work out with my athletes. I have to be coaching and looking at form. So like I make at least 20 minutes Monday through Friday for my own workouts because if I don't, like, I don't wanna get weak, I don't feel as good, my energy is not as great, so I just try to prioritize it, and that happened because I did this young and learned the importance of it young.
Yep. Perfect. Good. um, where can people find out? Obviously, I said you do have a couple books, you have a podcast. So where can people find out more about you?
I'm on Instagram at Fit Soccer Queen, so you can just find me there, and all the books are on my page.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Erica. This was awesome.
Alright, thank you.